Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mr. Abdullah Amin is talking. And today, inshallah, we are going to explain chapter 6, lesson 4, the lesson about traits, genes, and alleles. Okay, in this lesson, inshallah, we are going to know what the meaning of gene, what is allele, and different forms of allele, how allele can be dominant or recessive, what the difference between genotype and phenotype, and what is the difference between heterozygous and homozygous. First of all, gene. What is gene? Simply, gene is a part of DNA or section of DNA, okay, that found in the chromosome that's responsible for a specific trait, responsible for certain trait or certain protein to make. So, any part of DNA that has a code for a specific trait or has a code for certain protein to make, so this part, which is called gene. That means all of our chromosomes that we have, they have like many parts on the chromosome. Each part of them is a gene or responsible for a specific trait or responsible for make a certain type of protein and so on. And each gene, guys, it has a location. So the location of the gene is called locus. So each gene has a locus or a specific position on a pair of homologous chromosome. Okay, so we know that homologous chromosomes, they are like pair of chromosomes that we inherited from the parents, one from the mom, one from the dad, all organisms that take their genetic material from the parents. Okay, sometimes, guys, we inherit the trait from the parents. Maybe like if the parent have a black eye color and one of them have a black and one of them have green, so we inherit both traits or both alleles from the parents. We inherit both genes. For example, so the gene, we take the gene for the eye color from the mom, we take the gene for the eye color for the dad, but actually we didn't take the exact copy. No, we take similar genes. So we take the eye color from here, eye color from there, but in different forms. These forms, we named it as allele. So allele, which is any alternative form of genes occurring at a specific locus on the chromosome. So our chromosomes, we have different versions of genes in homologous chromosome. So maybe they are the same, like in the plant, the pea plant, we have the mother have wrinkled pea plant, and the female, the male and female have like wrinkled pea plant. Sometimes the male have wrinkled pea plant and the female have round pea plant. So we take the two copies. We take the two copies from the parent. So these versions of genes, we named it as allele. We named it as allele. So each parent donates one allele for every gene. Okay, so we have all alleles in our all chromosomes. We take allele from each parent and we donate one copy of them to the offspring. Sometimes, guys, you can find the allele, both of them are similar together. Maybe the both of them like they are different from each other. If they are similar together, we name them as homozygous. So maybe the organism is homozygous if he has two copies of the same allele in a specific location or in a specific locus. On the other hand, we have if the organism take different copies of the same genes in a specific location, this organism, it will be heterozygous. So alleles are different from each other. So when I ask you what the difference between homozygous and heterozygous, simply homozygous, homo, equal the same. So both alleles are the same, but hetero, they are different. So maybe wrinkled or round, they are different, but homo, same, hetero, different. That's it about the difference between homozygous and heterozygous. Okay, let's talk about homozygous and heterozygous and how we inherit these alleles from the parents. Suppose this is like this chromosome we inherited from the parent, from the male part, from the dad, this chromosome we inherit from the mom. So we take different versions of genes or the same versions of genes according to the trait. So sometimes we can find the alleles. They are written by like small letters, maybe by capital letters, maybe one capital and one lowercase. In this case, guys, we said that the combination of allele, this combination of allele that you inherit from the parents, we named it as genotype. So genotype refer to what? The makeup of a specific set of genes, makeup or combination of allele at a specific locus. Okay, so maybe you inherit the same allele, like R small, P capital, E capital, A capital, B small. Maybe you inherit two different alleles, like C small, C capital. Okay, so this genetic makeup or this combination of allele that make your genotype, okay, and this genotype later expressed in a physical trait. So the trait or the observable trait, we called it a phenotype. So is a physical trait or physical expression of a trait. Okay, so this combination of allele, homozygous, and this is because this letter is capital letter, so it's for dominant allele. So this is homozygous dominant because we have two dominant allele, or homozygous recessive because we have like two recessive allele. And this is heterozygous, there is no dominant or recessive because we have like one dominant allele and one recessive allele. Okay, and then all these genetic material of an organism, we named it as genome. So the genome is all of an organism genetic material that the organism have. It's called genome. Okay. Alleles can be expressed or represented by using letter. As we said last slide, as we see, like we have like capital letter, a lowercase letter. This is according to its dominant or recessive. So the dominant always appear in a capital letter and the recessive always appear in lowercase letter. Okay. This is about the genotype. If we have like wrinkled and round, so the phenotype, it will be round. Why? Because we have a dominant allele is present. Okay. On the other hand, so when the phenotype is wrinkled and this trait is recessive, it does not appear unless we have two copies of wrinkled allele. So wrinkled and wrinkled equal wrinkled. So wrinkled and round equal round. Okay, round and round equal round. So if we have one copy of dominant allele, it will be expressed in a what? In dominant trait. If we have two copies, if we have like round and round, for example, so two copies of dominant allele, of course, the phenotype, it will be dominant. Okay, so the recessive trait just only appear in one case if we have like two wrinkled allele. So if we have two recessive allele, so in this case the phenotype, it will be recessive. So dominant always appear if we have like one copy of dominant allele or two copies. Is expressed as a phenotype when at least one allele is dominant. So one allele is dominant, so it will be dominant in the phenotype. But recessive allele is expressed as a phenotype only when two copies are present. Two copies of what? Yes, two copies of recessive alleles. Okay, and dominant like represented by uppercase letter, recessive represented by lowercase letter. Okay. We have, for example, if we have like homozygous dominant, homozygous, homozygous, what does it mean? Yes, homozygous, if we have like two alleles are the same. Okay, and dominant, which is like both of them are capital letters. So if we have R capital, and if we have like heterozygous, which is R capital, R small, so we have two different alleles. In this case, the dominant phenotype will appear. Okay, because the recessive phenotype appear only if we have homozygous recessive. If we have homozygous recessive, in this case, the recessive phenotype will appear. Okay, all of this was just talking about the traits that Mendel like made some experiment about them in the pea plant, and because the pea plant is a simple plant and have like a small or a very small range of traits, like every characteristic just has two types or has two forms of the trait. So most traits occur in range and do not follow the simple dominant recessive pattern. Inshallah, next time or later, we're going to talk about something called incomplete dominance. We're going to talk about something called codominance. So this will be inshallah next time. Okay, so this is like dominant, which is smooth but color, and this is like recessive because like it's compressed and so on. Finally, what did we learn today? We learn what the meaning of gene, and as we said, gene is a part of DNA that's responsible for a specific trait. Okay, and we know what is allele, which is a version of genes. Allele, which is what? which is different versions or alternative forms of genes, and this allele may be dominant or recessive. We write the dominant with the capital letter. We write recessive with the lowercase letter. What the difference between genotype and phenotype? Genotype, which is combination of alleles that you inherit from the parents. We always write it with letters like this, so maybe capital, small, or both capitals or both small according to homo or heterozygous. And the phenotype, which is observable trait. So this trait we can see, so we say this is phenotype. But this trait, actually the genotype we cannot see because this is stored in the DNA. We cannot see the DNA. When you look to someone, you are not looking to his DNA, you are looking to his physical trait or physical shape. Okay, so the genotype is stored in the DNA, phenotype, which is like physical trait. Finally, the genotype may be homozygous or heterozygous. Homozygous if they have both allele are the same, like homozygous dominant if we have both dominant allele, and heterozygous, and homozygous recessive if we have two recessive alleles. Heterozygous, finally, which is if we have one dominant allele and one recessive allele. Okay, that's it. See you next time.